5:35. So we have discussion time for a worthwhile discussion. Thank you.
Everyone, Saranai, most venerable Vajrarame Jnanasiya Mahatera, all other venerables who may be listening or watching this program, Mr. Chairman Professor Polita Seleva, the members of the Servants of the Buddha, and all who are listening and watching this program from different parts of the world. And I greet all of them and thank you for listening and watching. Now, it is also my duty to convey my gratitude to the Servants of the Buddha Association for the opportunity given to me. And in particular, I must mention the President, Professor Manori Senanayaka, who also cooperated and invited me for this talk. Now, the subject today actually is only 3 words of Pali, Avijja, paccaya, sankara. And the English translation is with a rising of ignorance, mental formations arise. Now, the translations may not be very accurate sometimes, and also there are certain ambiguities in translations. So, the 3 Pali words all need detailed explanation, as Professor Kolita said. Now, I believe everybody can see the slide. With the rising of ignorance, mental formations arise. Now, here, what is important is Tathagata Gautama Buddha, when he attained enlightenment, had both wisdom and compassion towards the entire mankind in preaching his doctrine of liberation from suffering in the endless cycle of birth and death. Now, the important point here is that his message is that practitioners should try to get rid of this samsara, end of the cycle of birth and death. The cycle of birth and death is suffering, and therefore try to get rid of this cycle as it will help in getting rid of suffering. He also emphasized the value of the great opportunity that each one of us as human beings has in making an effort towards the spiritual goal of liberation. So the second point here is that do it as early as possible, because we are born as human beings, and this may be our real opportunity, the most rare opportunity that we have, because our next life may not be something favorable. It can be something unfavorable, whereas at this opportunity, we have the chance of getting rid of the cycle of birth and death. If possible, we should make an attempt to do it. It is hoped that everyone will find this presentation helpful in progressing towards liberation from the endless cycle of suffering. So, coming to the topic, the subject Avijja, paccaya, sankara, which means when ignorance arises, mental formations arise, represents the first step of the doctrine of dependent arising, which the Buddha realized at the time of enlightenment. You know, on the night of enlightenment, this is what he really actually realized, and he actually attained enlightenment with this. And he understood the problem faced by the mankind because of this enlightenment. He actually achieved his goal. By this doctrine, Buddha actually revealed a dynamic cosmic order. This is a cosmic order applicable to the vast majority of people who get deceived by misconceptions seen in the world. Now, what is important is that there is this misconception. Probably you have heard the word vipallasa, that what you see is not what is real. What you have understood is not what is real. So, you are seeing a world, not the real world. It is, so this misconception is the point that we are going to discuss in detail today. Now, but the thing is, there are misconceptions in the world, but the Buddha taught that practitioners who are able to achieve liberation through emphasis on wisdom without getting deceived by misconceptions. So the practitioners have the opportunity of seeing reality without getting deceived by these misconceptions. If you can see through the misconceptions and see reality, you have the opportunity of getting liberated. This is the point. We can now consider how the doctrine is applicable to all followers. All. Now, in commencing the discussion of the subject with the term Avijja, it is very relevant to quote Buddha's first discourse, Dhamma Sutta. Here the Buddha refers to this event, the enlightenment, with the following words. Chakku udapadi, vision arose. Jnanam udapadi, intelligence arose. Panya udapadi, wisdom arose. Vijja udapadi, knowledge arose. Aloka udapadi, illumination arose. He uses 5 different terms to describe the same thing, to emphasize the point. Vision, intelligence, wisdom, knowledge, illumination, all 5 represent this enlightenment. So, the above terms, while emphasizing the significance of the event, it shows that until the enlightenment produced illumination, the human beings were in a state of darkness. And there was no proper knowledge and wisdom referred to as Vijja and Panya. So, the knowledge and wisdom is Vijja and Panya. And now, the darkness of Avijja, if there is something unknown, that is Vijja, Avijja, but then he said, if Vijja is knowledge, then Avijja will have to be ignorance. Here, now, the word ignorance is used for Avijja, means the ignorance of reality. Now, when you say ignorance, you say ignorance of what? So, ignorance of reality is the true nature of existence. The reality is the true nature of existence. If you are not seeing reality, if you are not seeing the true nature of existence, then that is going to be Avijja. Because he has explained Vijja as the knowledge. As regards the reality of existence, Buddha taught that there are three basic fundamental features in the world which are not normally realized by the majority of people due to misconceptions which cause a serious drawback to spiritual progress. Now, the Buddha's picture of the entire universe is based on three basic fundamental features. So this is what is important. The real world is seen as three basic fundamental features which are covering all details of the universe. And what is misconceived or what is not properly seen are these three fundamental features. So, when you see the true nature, now this slide shows the true nature has three items of reality. True nature, impersonality or non-self, impermanence of everything, and unsatisfactory state of everything. Those are the three fundamental characteristics of the universe which he observed, which people do not see properly. Now, on the right-hand side, you see impersonality or non-self is seen by people as a belief in I. If I am there, mine, then myself. So this is a threefold personality that people believe in. People believe in a threefold misbelief. There is a person called I possess certain things, they are mine, and myself, I was living earlier, I am there now, I am going to live again, that myself. So these three misbeliefs are there. Then impermanence of everything. Impermanence means things are changing, but things appear as permanent, whereas sometimes you can see a little bit of impermanence, but because of our desire for certain things, you still feel you have a notion of permanency. What is impermanent is also seen as permanent because of your desire sometimes. Or even if you don't desire, you still see permanency in impermanence thing. According to the doctrine, everything is changing continuously. Now, the third item is unsatisfactory state of everything. That is, things appear satisfactory. Whatever you do, whatever you start, they appear satisfactory. But later you find that finally things turn, you get disappointed, you see so many unsatisfactory states later. And Buddha's teaching is that there is nothing that is really satisfactory when it comes to the real functioning of anything that you are trying to do or anything that you possess. Now, out of these three fundamental characteristics, impersonality, impermanence, and unsatisfactory state of everything, the Buddha wanted to preach his doctrine to the world. And he tried to find his teachers. Alarakalam, Uddakaramaputta, they had passed away, so he found his colleagues, 5 colleagues, earlier colleagues, and he met them and preached the first sermon to them. And he was so pragmatic. He felt that nobody will understand if he starts talking about impersonality. And he felt there is a difficulty in even showing impermanence. But then he thought it is easier to explain this unsatisfactory state where people suffer because of the suffering that people are undergoing, he started discussing the first discourse, Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. The Buddha referred to the unsatisfactory state or dukkha, which causes suffering. It was easier for him to explain that. And also, as he expected, one of the colleagues, Venerable Kondanya, achieved the spiritual progress and he attained the Sotapanna level. There he gave the cause of suffering, the solution and solution to the end of suffering in the form of Four Noble Truths. And the failure to understand Four Noble Truths is also considered as ignorance. So, what you see on the screen, the impersonality, impermanence, unsatisfactory state of everything, and also the Four Noble Truths, all four are considered parts of reality which people are not properly seeing. So ignorance is the mistaken belief of all this. All this means the three fundamental characteristics and also the Four Noble Truths. So we move on. The main point here is that at the second disc of Anattalakkana Sutta, all five colleagues of the Buddha, all five monks, ascetics, attained spiritual progress. That was only later, in the second discourse. Now the Tilakshana, I'm explaining the actual details about this. It is quite significant that ignorance of three fundamental characteristics is due to misconceptions referred to in the doctrine as vipallasa. The word vipallasa, I believe, is familiar to certain people, but what it means is really this misconception. Impersonality is seen as personality, permanence is seen as permanence, and unsatisfactoriness is seen as satisfactory. Therefore, if it is possible to see misconceptions as misconceptions, one can get rid of ignorance. If you see reality, you can get rid of ignorance. In this regard, it is necessary to discuss here the importance of the three characteristics one by one in trying to eliminate misconceptions. Why they are misconceptions? So we are discussing why they are misconceptions. As regards personality or self, if there is a self, it has to be within the five aggregates which form the entity called a person. I believe most of you may be familiar with the five aggregates: the form, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, consciousness. The five aggregates. If there is anything, it should be in one of those. The five components which form the psychophysical entity called the person. So, no such self can be identified anywhere in the psychophysical entity called person. The person has also got to possess mastery over such personality. If I am there, I possess so many things. I am having so much of, stature or whatever. But if it is so, there must be some mastery over such personality. Do you have any mastery over it? Or do you have any control? However, it is seen that there is no control whatsoever on the physical body, which is subject to decay, disease, and death. Now, your physical body, you don't know what time you fall sick. You don't know what time you are dying. You don't know whether actually the reports that you get from the health authorities may be good or bad. We don't know. There's so much of uncertainty about ourselves. There's so much of the doubts about our condition. Somebody can say, tomorrow you have to get admitted, otherwise your life is in danger. So, which means that there is no control whatsoever about our body, which is subject to decay, disease, and death. Even the thoughts are in total disarray, with mental diffusion and proliferation taking place without any control. Now, you are listening. At the moment, your thoughts are here, but sometimes you will find the thoughts have gone away, and the thoughts are getting diffused. The mental proliferation is taking place without any control. Without your knowledge, your thoughts are gone. So this is called mental proliferation, which is taking place without any control. The individual is in fact, now what you see is that thoughts cannot be controlled, the body cannot be controlled, and also the individual is in fact tied down by misconceived self like a prisoner. Now, when you are having a personality, you feel that you have to do so many things. You are being controlled by like a prisoner inside an invisible cage, because you have to do so many things. You have to look at so many places. You have committed. You have so many commitments. You are, by imagining that there is a self within him, he is burdened with too many things to worry about, because you are yourself. You have so many commitments. You have so many responsibilities. So much of things to worry about. It is a major drawback that he has lost his ability to think freely and objectively. Now, since you are involved, you have a self, you become selfish. Since you have a self, you become selfish. So that means you cannot think freely. You cannot think objectively. Supposing you are given the opportunity of dividing the cake, then you might have a tendency to have the bigger piece because of this, your greed. And this is lobby. You can't think objectively. If you can think objectively, then you have got to be you have to forget the fact that you have a self. Now, coming to impermanence. Impermanence is visible throughout the world at an accelerated pace. There is no single object that remains in permanent form. In addition, the whole world is without any fixed boundaries, showing a blurred picture, continuously changing, where almost nothing can be separately identified. Actually, what it means is the world is in a state of flux, which is really uncontrollable. It is also noteworthy that failure to see impermanence is partly due to the desire to grasp what is impermanent. Now, you see an object, you can see it can be a work of art, like something made of glass. You know that it is breakable. But you know that if it falls, it will be in pieces. But still since you have a desire, you have a notion of permanence. And what is, you're failing to see the impermanence partly due to the desire. You have a desire. Now we are coming to the third one. As regards satisfaction, whatever object that appears satisfying at one point of time fails to provide the same satisfaction within a short time, causing disappointment. In the long run, dissatisfaction is the order of the day. What is prevailing throughout the world is disorder and not order, lack of harmonious environments. And it is clinging and attachment to impermanent things, and therefore it is clinging and attachment to impermanent things that causes suffering. It is also noteworthy that all three characteristics, impermanence, impersonality, and unsatisfactoriness, are interconnected. That is, if you think of a self and start grabbing something which is impermanent, there is unsatisfactoriness because it is changing. So actually the three are interconnected. Now, we are actually moving to the doctrine, the solution to the problem. The doctrine has recognized that individuals have attributes forming ever-changing character and personality. No two people are similar. No two people have the same attributes. So, each individual has those attributes which are ever-changing character and personality. In the case of practitioners who, with their ability to think and use their penetrative wisdom. Now, the wisdom that is needed has to be a bit, I would say, penetrative. Penetrative means it has to be deep. And if you have that penetrative wisdom, you realize the true nature of impersonality, impermanence, and unsatisfactoriness, or at least one of the three. Such people can fully comprehend the truth of the true nature of existence. Now, every person is different. So the practitioners have the ability, some have the ability of even probably seeing them at a glance sometimes. But the majority will take time to realize that they are real. What is real is the trilakshana, and what is seen is misconception. So, there are these people, they are able to achieve, some people or the practitioners have the opportunity of achieving full liberation in this life itself. If you can see the reality of the three fundamental characteristics, there is a possible way of achieving spiritual progress, referred to as triple gateway to liberation, vimokka mukha. Now, they are named as voidness deliverance, signlessness deliverance, and desireless deliverance in order. Any one of these paths is sufficient for full liberation. When nirvana is realized, what comes to an end is not a personality or self, but the false belief in a self or personality. Nothing changes, but it is the false belief that you get rid of, and that is nirvana. So, the three fundamental characteristics which you cannot see properly are again shown in this slide. The impersonality or non-self, and if it is seen properly, there is a pathway to voidness liberation. And if impermanence of everything is seen properly as impermanence, there is a pathway to signless liberation. And if you see the unsatisfactory state of everything, then there is a path to desireless liberation. So this is the main point that is shown in this talk. And the other important point is there is also the possibility, there is a very, very clear possibility of vipassana meditation helping you. Vipassana meditation is particularly relevant for mental development. Now, the vipassana is really directly related to the three fundamental characteristics. This direct relationship of trilakshana for achieving one's spiritual progress is through wisdom. And in developing the penetrative wisdom of an individual, it is vipassana meditation that can help. Of course, even samatha meditation will be helpful up to a point, but vipassana has the direct relationship with the three fundamental characteristics. Now, I think I have to mention the fact that that Buddhist practitioners are extremely fortunate that vipassana meditation developed in these countries like Myanmar and Sri Lanka during the last century or in particular, you can say during the last 70 years, because there was a Dhamma in Myanmar in 1954 up to 56 in relation to the Buddha Jayanti. Vipassana meditation as a tradition became well known and popular in these countries during that period. So we are fortunate that there are facilities for Vipassana meditation, but the assistance from, say, the RNAs and all are not, I would say they are not essential, but people can definitely have that opportunity, have that support given by the RNAs. Now, one thing, again, regarding the meditation is that samatha, or the meditation that is needed to for your it's really relating to the direct samatha is to get the focusing, direct focusing is can help up to a point, but it is vipassana that you can really continue with in order to get the three fundamental characteristics clarified. Or as an example, I can tell that the animitta samadhi or signless liberation is directly related to the Satara Satipatthana, which is a part of the Vipassana meditation. So there is this opportunity of getting liberated from the cycle of birth and death by the realization of the truth, realization of the real position relating to the world which the Buddha preached as real. What is real? If it is realized as without any misconception, you are on your way to liberation. Now there is a word paccaya which we had to discuss today. That is explaining the term paccaya. It is possible to refer to it as a conjunction, like because, and can also be a condition for one thing to arise because of another thing. Now, Bauddhatuka Sutta gives the stanza, this coming into being, that comes to be. With the rising of this, that arises. With this not coming into being, that does not come to be. With ceasing of this, that ceases. So therefore, paccaya means a conditional relationship between this and that, which arise at the same time. So they are not two different events arising one after the other. They occur simultaneously because of one the other occurs. So in the subject of Avijja paccaya sankara, which is translated as with the arising of ignorance, mental formations arise, we have to now move on to the term sankara. Now, I think we are coming to the term sankara, what it means, and it needs an explanation. The term has been translated as mental formation. What is observed in the world in general is the prevalence of ignorance and not the wisdom that is needed for liberation. Now, we were talking about the wisdom that is needed for liberation. But what prevails in the world is ignorance. This is a point that the Buddha had emphasized, and therefore, the preaching of the law of dependent arising becomes a path for liberation by getting rid of all attachments. When ignorance prevails, sankara prevails. So in explaining the term sankara, it is to be emphasized that the English translation is only one of many different translations. Erudite scholars have used translations such as volitional formations, mental fabrications, preparations, karma formations, reflective thoughts, and even volitions. There are also several different applications of the term sankara in the doctrine itself, and it is advisable to use the term sankara in this presentation. So there are so many translations. So, but is advisable to use the term sankara. In clarifying the term sankara, it is possible to give a few of the applications and examples which are directly relevant to normal life of an individual. To explain sankara, I am giving some examples. The misconceived belief in a personality causes thoughts of desire, affection, ego, greed, jealousy, hatred, which include both attachments and repulsions. They can be even wholesome or unwholesome thoughts. Based on such thoughts, there can be words spoken, action performed, both good and bad, meritorious and demeritorious. All such thoughts, words, and actions are sankaras. I think in this area I can make a clarification here. Even meritorious deeds. When you do something meritorious and you expect something in return, it doesn't become really meritorious. It becomes the sankara. And all such thoughts, words, and actions are sankara. Differences among racial groups, nationalities, religious groups, even tribal groups, cause hatred, jealousy, animosity, leading to warfare. By misconceived belief in permanency in objects which are impermanent, there is attachment to objects, grasping and greediness, and even repulsion from what is liked and disliked. So attachments and repulsions are both sankaras. And in ordinary life, this is another example. In ordinary life, people feel lethargic due to absence of any activity and start a game of recreation where two sides play against each other. The game can become a competition where scoring points can lead to serious rivalry. Even such competitions and more organized tournaments all over the world lead to sankaras because they are related to groupings based on misconceptions. The two parties involved are all based on misconceptions. Viewers of a film show can get fully absorbed and attached to a story to the extent of causing emotional reactions. The thoughts that are built up in viewing a film are sankaras because they are based on ignorance caused by misconceptions. Anything that is created, that is in addition, anything that is created will have the potential of attracting people who get involved with the creation. All creations are referred to as, in the doctrine, as sankatas, which have the potential of sankara. You create something. You create something, and that creation becomes an attraction for you. You build a house, then you start getting involved in the house. You become attached to the house. You create a work of art, you become attached to that work of art. Or you assemble something. Whatever you do, whatever that is being done, or whatever that has been constructed anywhere by anybody, becomes a part of sankara because it has the potential of sankaras. Sankaras means creations. All creations, according to the doctrine, are sankaras because they have the potential of becoming sankaras. All above examples are sankaras formed by ignorance or delusion caused by misconception. Now, the best example given by the Buddha himself in explaining the true nature of sankaras, the Buddha himself compared sankara to the trunk of a banana plant. Even though the banana trunk appears normal from outside, when it peels off, all the peels fall off, leaving a core which is hollow without anything of substance. This shows that sankara has no essence or no co-element. So, this is actually the mental formation that we are talking about. And now we come to this doctrine of dependent arising, which the Buddha at the time of enlightenment realized that the nature of life is in the form of a non-ending cycle of birth and death, functioning according to the doctrine of dependent arising. Existence of life is a beginningless, endless cycle which has 12 factors linked together in 12 steps. It is like a whirlpool, self-driven, self-energized by ignorance and clinging. Now, he understood the real problem. He analyzed the problem of suffering, and found that the world is in the form of a whirlpool, which is something that is a cycle connected with so many factors together. Now, the whirlpool is a cycle which can be compared to even now. If you want a simple example of a cycle of whirlpool, the rainfall itself. Now, rainwater goes down through rivers to the ocean, and from the ocean there is evaporation into the sky, and then there is a formation of clouds, and the clouds move on to the land, and then the clouds get precipitated as rainfall again. So it's a self-energized, self-driven cycle. Similarly, the life also is a cycle which is self-driven, self-energized. And what has been discussed is only the first step which links ignorance or delusion with sankara or mental formations. But the vast majority of humanity and other sentient living beings who are affected by ignorance undergo continuous suffering in the cycle of birth and death. Now, what is important is that the Buddha found in this doctrine, dependent arising, the real problem. He analyzed the problem. The doctrine of dependent arising shows the problem. Now, the solution is to somehow or other get rid of this cycle. The continuous cycle has to be broken, and if it can be broken, it is another solution to the problem of our being pushed around in the cycle of birth and death, which is going to be the solution for suffering. Now, the continuity can therefore be broken by getting rid of ignorance. Now, the cycle is being pushed from one side by our ignorance. Ignorance pushes the cycle from one side, and clinging to things in the world, or your attachments to the worldly things, is the other factor which is pulling the cycle down. And the continuity of the cycle is made by ignorance from one side and clinging by the other side. Now, actually, what we see is the misconception which is causing the ignorance. And if you can get rid of the ignorance, or if you can get rid of the impersonality, or the personality feeling, and become aware of or realize the lack of personality, then you get rid of ignorance. And if you get detached from your worldly things which you are attached to, then that is also one solution. There are two places in the cycle which can help in breaking the cycle, like the ignorance or clinging, or what is related to them. So we actually have covered this. We have covered only the first step of the law of dependent arising. The detailed discussion on it, the continuity of the law of dependent arising is detailed, but the fact that it is clearly indicating the problem of your attachments. Attachments means upadana in Pali, or dhanna and upadana. Your attachment, that is your greediness, or attachment, and also your clinging. Clinging is the word which is used in the doctrine to refer to upadana. So if you get rid of ignorance from one side or clinging from the other side, you still have the possibility of breaking the cycle of the continuous birth and death in the samsara. Now, before I come to the conclusion, I would like to recap what I said so that it might be useful for the Buddha said, recapping this talk. I am now trying to give the main points that I discussed. The Buddha said, please get rid of this liberation. Please get rid of this, the cycle of birth and death by liberation from samsara. And then he emphasized the need to do it as quickly as possible. So, and then we found that intelligence and wisdom and knowledge, illumination, vision are all same. And therefore, avijja means lack of knowledge, which is ignorance, and therefore, and the ignorance is in the form of three fundamental characters of the universe: impersonality, impermanence, and unsatisfactory state of everything. So, in Pali, they are referred to as anicca, dukkha, anatta, and the misbelief in personality, misbelief in permanent things, misbelief in satisfactory things is the cause of the problem. Then also we found Four Noble Truths, which also has not been understood by people, which forms ignorance again. So the picture of ignorance is really helpful for people to identify where to put your finger and see that we can get rid of all these by having some proper perception. Getting rid of misconceptions is the solution. And getting rid of misconceptions means impersonal self. If you get rid of that misconception of personality, you are going to get liberated through voidness. Voidness means not emptiness. Voidness means void of self. So that is a solution to the impersonality problem in one way. Then impermanence can also be seen, if you see impermanence properly, then you have the signless liberation. And if you see unsatisfactory state of everything clearly, then you have the pathway to desireless liberation. They are, and vipassana meditation is clearly connected to the problem of the problem of solution to the tilakshana. Tilakshana in vipassana, what is done in detail is all related to the tilakshana. Tilakshana is the word that is used to refer to all three factors. So we came to the description of sankara. Now, sankara is a part of the cycle of dependent arising, which is the cycle which which shows the whirlpool, which is controlling all the human beings, and the detailed problem is shown with the 12 factors, and there are the two main links, like the impersonality link, that is to see the personality and impersonality, and also the second link, which is the attachment to the worldly things, which can be the other problem which we can get rid of. So the solutions are there. The Buddha has preached the reality. Buddha had given the proper advice, and people have everybody has the opportunity of getting rid of the cycle of birth and death by realizing the true nature of the universe. And so I like to conclude The followers who seek liberation from the unending cycle of birth and death can first use their penetrative wisdom in realizing the true nature of existence in the form of three characteristics and use one of the three pathways to nirvana: voidness deliverance, signless deliverance, desireless deliverance. In Pali, you say animita, sunyata, and apanita. Now, this is described in several suttas, and Mahavedala Sutta, Churavedala Sutta, Sangita Sutta, and even Dhammapada covers this subject, and Dhammapada talks about this in detail. Now, if you do not see in clear terms the need to sort of the vision, if you don't get this vision of reality by seeing the three fundamental characteristics, in the alternative, one can get rid of clinging to worldly objects, as shown in the law of dependent arising. The detachment from clinging can break the unending cycle of birth and death for reaching liberation. So breaking the cycle is also possible by either realizing the impersonality or or getting rid of all attachments to the world. That is called clinging, which is referred to as, in Pali, the word is upadana. You either get rid of upadana, and that is shown by the dependent arising. But the shorter or the easier thing is to maintain your wisdom, penetrative wisdom, which I believe it may be easier, it may be difficult. All these are, it depends on each person's attributes. Sometimes the three fundamental characteristics might be visible to somebody without much effort. It is possible. So the possibilities are there. So I have given a coverage of these both possibilities, that is, to achieve liberation by seeing the reality, or to achieve liberation by getting rid of attachments. May all achieve their full liberation from samsara.
Thank you very much, Mr. Das.